Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andresa.
So in today's episode, ladies, we have Christine McCarron. She's from the Boston area, does a lot of different types of investing, but what we focused on today was house hacking. And not just house hacking in your 20s, but house hacking actually in your 40s and 50s, very different stage of life. And we go through some really important tips on how to even evaluate if that's a strategy for you in that stage of life.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a lot to gain when you're thinking about house hacking. So give a try to this episode instead of like, I don't want to do that. Well, it's like, how can you house hack on your own terms and really benefit from having properties where you want to visit? So Christine gave a lot of tips over here that is going to be super valuable for you.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andresa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Investor Show, where our passion, our mission, what runs through our veins is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life, right? On their own terms, whatever that looks like to you. And that's what we stand for, as we do with our growing community, right? Andresa, everything we kind of are up to. Christine, thank you so much for being on our show today. Excited
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time and excited to jump into some really neat twists on house hacking. I love house hacking as a strategy. What I think we're going to talk about today is a different way to think about house hacking. So really excited to talk to you, and thanks for being on our show.
Appreciate it.
As we always do, we'd like to get connected to everyone, Andresa, like we do each week, in and out.
Yeah.
And so I always have things going on, you know.
What's popping?
What's popping?
What's popping? What's exploding? What is
I like that. Instead of asking people how they're doing, I'm going to say, what's popping? And see what they say, you know, catch them off guard. I'm so bored with that. How are you doing? I'm doing good. But anyway, side note. So a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to share, I did a session with my husband for our Strive members. And our Strive members are, our experienced women in real estate that are looking to scale and grow. And really, if you're starting out in investing, or if you have a portfolio and you're on some level, you have to connect with your spouse, right? You're either investing time, money, resources. So the importance
would be a great idea to connect.
It would be a great idea, right? If you're not. So I know everyone's like, wow, that's a novel idea. Thanks, Liz. I'll stop the episode now. But it's funny, right? Because we think we are on the same page often, but we're not. And so anyway, we did an alignment call it was basically investing with your spouse and getting on the same page or realigning. So, we had them do something at the beginning that I actually wanted to request or even encourage all the listeners. My husband and I are really passionate about supporting couples in this business, and we've a lot to come around that topic. And one of the things that you see is that people really want the same things. They're just not always aligned. So you think, well, that doesn't even make sense, right? But it does and it doesn't. So the exercise we did, and I want to encourage you, if you're into doing exercises and kind of doing this kind of work together, which quite honestly, if you're investing or not in, looking to invest together, you have to do this work. The exercise is basically to say, in 5 years, what does our life look like? As a result of investing, or in our investing business, what does our life look like? We talk about visioning, and that's not unique. I'm sure anyone listening is like, wow, I never thought of that. But do it separately, and then come together and do it and look at that together. And every couple should be doing that at least on every 6 month or at least a yearly basis, because it changes, it evolves. And there was one couple in particular who always, I know the woman well in our membership, and she's always like, we're very aligned. And then they did the exercise. And of course, they were the couple that had to share, because, couples want to share everyone, and they weren't aligned. So, it's an ongoing kind of process. And I think, especially as markets change, as we're in right now, people's fear levels go up, and a lot of things are occurring. So these kinds of conversations become even more important. So again, my recommendation is do that separately. Like, what do I want our life to look like? What do we want our investing business to look like? What do I want to be doing in this business? Do that separately, and then come back together. And whether you want to go out to lunch, out to dinner, have a cocktail, drink a cup of tea, whatever works for your relationship, but come together and then say, are we aligned? If we're not, what kind of conversations we need to have so we can become aligned. So that's what I have for everyone on this week. I'd love to hear if you do the exercise, post on our Facebook community. And if you're not part of our Facebook community, please post. But, we do that a lot with our Strive members, Andresa, and we open our doors to our Strive membership twice a year. So we're excited about that coming up very soon. You can check that out on our website, learning more about our Strive members. But we really take that to a new level with your partner if you have one.
Yeah. The doors were open up in December, by the way. We open twice a year and open up in December. One thing that I think, just observing the women coming and being vulnerable, and the men, poor guys, they don't have another choice but being vulnerable, because that's how we all roll. But I admire them very much because they are playing the same field and supporting one another. And I love what you said about assuming that we're aligned, but we aren't. So there's like, oh, it's obvious, or you guys will be surprised with the conversations. And as we all evolved as individual human beings, don't assume the conversation that you had with somebody 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or 5 years ago when you got started, 10, whatever, that's still the same, because we evolve. And we might want to go to a freaking farm, right? And raise chickens while we have cash flow, right? Liz, I know that this is one of our goals, not to raise chickens. Somebody will raise the chicken. Okay.
We both want a farm.
Make it clear. I just see ourselves at the porch, there. Somebody's raising the chickens. Not us.
There you go. Keep doing the work, right? Individually, as a couple, just keep doing it and keep talking, because assumptions get us into trouble.
Yes.
All right. Without further ado, Christine, thanks again for being on our show. We like to ask the question to kind of kick things off. What lesson has taken you the longest to learn in your journey?
I guess it would probably be asking for help. I thought I was like, I can do this myself. I can, I don't need anyone else. And it's just so much, first of all, that, is dumb. And second of all, it's just so much easier with help. And I didn't know how much I didn't know until I actually started to ask for help. That was a tough lesson to learn.
I'm curious, this is a follow-up, because, this work that we're doing is, we're dedicated to women holistically getting what they want and need. And somewhere along the way, right, conditionally, right, we can get into a whole episode around not asking for help. So for you, what was the first thing that you did ask for help that you wish you'd had asked for help sooner? Just to follow up on that quickly.
I remember very specifically, actually, I had bought this place. I'd bought like a fixer-upper cabin, and I had spent the whole day, and it was supposed to be cool, and it was really hot, and I'm sweating, and I'm laying on the floor that night in a sleeping bag on the floor. And I just looked up at the ceiling and I said, okay, I admit it, I need help. And so I attracted a contractor who was, he was giving up drinking. He was finding, time heavy on his hands, and he ended up doing the whole project with me. And it was such a great learning experience. So great. Yeah, it was fantastic. Fantastic.
Well done. So Christine, we have talked about house hacking before at the show, right? But we're doing a twist here, because house hacking, when you're on your 20s, and it sounds like fun having a roommate, and because you barely have money in the bank to pay for your entire rent, and it's different when you're in your 40s. You're in different stage of life. So I think it's so refreshing to hear. And we're going to break this down, ladies, that for all of you that are not 20s, are not on your 20s. Right?
And I haven't been so in a long time.
This is natural gray.
Right.
You don't see my gray. I pluck it a lot.
She plucks it. I see Elise all the time. Like, pluck it. I was like, what are you doing?
I'm plucking my gray.
Just stay over here. But talking about house hacking in a different stage of life, it's like house hacking on our own terms. So let's start breaking that down for the women that are confused right now. So what are you talking about? What are you asking me to do here? Share your experience with us. How did you do it on your own terms?
It can be, well, so I'm very, I did the roommate thing, right? And I'm like, so I actually subdivided my house so that they would have their whole separate wing. But it was because I mean, it's just me. I needed a small place. I had a 1,200 square foot ranch, and I basically cut it in half, and they got that half and I got this half. And so it was a lot of privacy, and I wasn't having to, I could meet them and spend as much time with them as I wanted and just sort of be on my own as much as I wanted. So it worked out fantastically. But I have also stayed with a lot of people who were house hackers and who were loving that whole experience of like, the kids are all now in college. They were just sort of like, now what are we going to do? And kind of bored and not, money wasn't maybe as free as they had kind of thought it would be when they were planning retirement. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, and they were opening their home to people who from all over the world, right? I mean, I feel like the Airbnb community is a real cool community. You meet some great people and it can be really fun, really fun.
So walk us through that process, right? Because as real estate investors, we have no problem letting go of renting properties we buy because that's what we buy them for. But our home is more than a property, right? Yeah. We didn't buy it with that intent. Or are you saying that it's really about converting, right? That's what you're speaking of, is that I have an existing property, I live here. So you're almost like in a sense not buying a house to house hack. You're in a house that you're going to hack, if you will, as you're in your 40s. So walk us through. What process would someone take? They're listening to this, they're 40, what have you. They see this as an opportunity to increase their income. They're just not sure. Is this the right thing for them? Because again, they're opening something very personal in a sense. I love that you subdivided your house. I think that's a brilliant idea. So walk us through a little bit of maybe some of those initial questions they should be asking, some almost like an evaluation for themselves. So I think that's an important part of it to see if this is a good fit for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That there has to be a lot of real honesty with yourself. Like, how much do I really, do I want to wait for someone else to get out of the bathroom, right? I mean, how much love do I want? Do I want to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If people are coming home late and doing their thing, how open and welcoming. And, again, like I've stayed with a lot of house hackers, and, one of them was an artist, and she just loved everybody and just wanted to meet. She didn't care, what time of the day or night you were coming or going and whatever. You just have to really say to yourself, how much interaction do I want to have with these people? And I feel like, to your point before, like, is this for me? That's the fantastic thing about short-term rentals is you don't have to, you can start off with a person for a weekend. And if you're like, well, that really sucked, then you'd never do it again. Right. But if you love it, then you say, maybe I would take on a longer term person. Maybe I would like to do this on a regular basis or whatever. So yeah, the first thing is definitely sit down and be really 100% honest with yourself about your own personality, your tolerance for noise, for smells, for, just people who might not be the same as you. And that's how you're going to have to decide how much privacy you're going to have to build into the situation. And then it's a question of, what do you have as an asset right now in your home? Do you just have a bedroom, or do you have the possibility to make a separate entrance, maybe a room in the garage? How much, take your inventory of basically your assets at that moment in time, and then figure out, especially if you're not really sure if you want to do it, you might start off with a really small sort of renovation, maybe just make a bedroom, put in a coffee pot and a microwave, and, just kind of like, as long as they have their own bathroom or whatever, just let them have that little wing of their own, even if they have to use your entrance. And then if it turns out that like, okay, yeah, this is a thing. And then reinvest. I definitely recommend reinvesting any money that you make for, at least the first year to make your place better, maybe a little more private, and possibly even to add additional opportunities for people to rent, right? Maybe you start out with a bedroom, and then you're like, I've got this shed, I've got this garage, and you could really build yourself an empire,
That's awesome. So when people are thinking about like, okay, what do people want? Why would they stay here? How do you evaluate your competition? Where do you go? What you're looking for? So people are, aware about what exactly to offer.
That's an excellent question, Andresa. Yeah, you really want to, I guess you could say cyber stalk the neighbors, right? You really want to look on Airbnb and say, I like to do it two different ways. First, I'll look and say, what's available for this weekend in my area? Because those are probably not the ones that people are loving, right? If it's available right away and, you're in a good season or whatever.
Like that reversed research kind of.
I love that.
Oh, I like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So you look and say, okay, these people, what's wrong with them, right? What do they have? And then you look and say, you leave it open, you leave your dates open, and then you start to see all the listings and you start to find some things in common. And there's some funny things about Airbnb that people might, like places that have white sheets, like do better on reviews. Like I know weird random stuff that you would maybe not think of, but those kind of little things that if you start to look, well, they obviously have to be kind of more neat. There are a lot more people who like neat than people who like messy, right? And people, I'm really eclectic. I don't mind some clutter. That's not the majority of people, right? And most people like things neat, clean, not so generic that you feel like you're in a hotel, but like bring a little of your personality, but not so much that, they're going to have to move stuff out of the way to get. And I'm thinking of that artist I stayed with. Literally, I'm walking through these halls and there's like stuff everywhere. I'm like, whoa. And just think about what you would like as well. I mean, what makes your house different? What could you do? Could you give them, we have outdoor space, or I have a great location, or, something that's going to say, or even you can even offer an experience, which could be a real special way to kind of kick it over the edge a little bit. But definitely you're going to have to do some really, again, honest analysis on Airbnb to say, because it's easy to look and say, well, my house is as good as that. And then you're like, well, actually, my lamps came from the Salvation Army and this person's lamps came from Tiffany's, right? There's going to be a difference. So just within your budget, you want to just do as much as you can to make people feel really comfortable and to let them know that they're, like we have, you're going to have a down comforter and, really comfy pillows and stuff. Let them know that in the listing so that they can be excited.
Are people, are the potential guests evaluating the situation as much as the owner is? Meaning, if I'm going to look at an Airbnb, right? I'm not going to use my family because there's no way we can stay with someone and my family because there's too much going on there. But say I'm traveling by myself. Well, let's play that out.
Wait a minute. When you say family, you mean like Matt and the kids, or like your extended family?
No, I meant Matt and the kids. Meaning, like I can't see a scenario where I'm going to rent a place through Airbnb where my husband and the two kiddos, we're all going to stay, and then there'll be the owner in the house too. Like that doesn't seem like ever a scenario I'd want to play out. So, but I'm curious because I never even thought of that as a criteria. Is there a criteria there that says the owner will be present in the listing? I have never seen that before, unless I'm just missing something or I'm asking a very stupid question. I don't know.
No, not at all. There isn't something you can search for.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you can search for, you're willing to have like a shared room, a private room, or a private home.
Oh, okay.
Or, what I mean? A private space.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I let people know that I'm the owner and I'm going to live, and then I live next door.
You do.
Just so that they know, you know what I mean? And I'd say this is the quiet time because you've got to set expectations,
Sure.
But there isn't like a way to say, I want to, I don't mind having somebody there, but I don't want to be with the owner.
So shared room, I know it sounds like I'm like a moron here, but shared room really would connotate that there's potentially other people going to be there, whether it's I own the building or Susie from Minnesota, whomever, the artist. That's just how that plays out. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that's a criteria that gets evaluated. Yeah. I'm curious, is that a trend? Just let's play that out. Has hacking your home and you're living there too, like this, where people actually look for that. Maybe it's just a foreign concept to me. Like, I don't know if I want to be in a home with other people. I don't know. It's because maybe it's just me, but is that something that is a growing trend? Because that gets my interests just from that perspective. So is that a trend that people want that more?
Well, I mean, if you think about like a hostel, that's an actual shared room, right? Where there's a bunk bed and there's other people in the room, potentially snoring. And that's, I think, cost as much as meeting people, because you can just as easily rendezvous in the kitchen and meet somebody as you don't have to sleep next to them. So, but yeah, shared house. I do think some people want to have the experience of meeting a local person to that area. And I mean, especially like say you're in another country and, how fun it would be to actually stay with an Italian person in Italy, and, how much more interesting that could be than just staying at, the Marriott or whatever, So I think that in general, someone who's going to be attracted to an Airbnb versus a hotel, they're looking for something different, right? Something special. So if you can provide that, right?
I'm curious.
No, I think that's I think that we're more used to the concept of sharing more than ever throughout the years with Uber, with Airbnb. When I heard about Airbnb for the first time in 2011, I was like, disgusting. Come on. People are going to come and then, sleep on my bed. How about the sheets? Anyway, after I rented my property for 2 weekends and that paid the mortgage, I was like, I like that. I'll buy new sheets.
Right.
I do not care. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
But I think that I agree with, there's two different concepts, right? If I'm thinking about going to Italy, and of course, I would love to stay at a original, like Italian house. You bet. Like, I don't know what an Italian that doesn't cook.
Right.
I really absolutely will get drunk together probably. Right. But it's not like, okay, in the suburbs of PA, not sure how interested that is. So when I think about the experience, one thing that I experienced during my last Airbnb that I rented during the summer is that they had like a pass for the beach that we could use it. Yeah. So we didn't have to do that. So always look for the experience on Airbnb. What are the partnerships that you can have with local people that they can think about it? Because you got to make some excitement, right, happening there. So I want to switch gears from the fun part to the not so fun part. When you are looking to analyze a deal, right? When you're looking to purchase a property, do you run the numbers as you already like thinking about house hacking? Are you running that scenario, or how do you do the finance considering your business structure?
Well, yeah, for sure. When I originally bought that house, I bought it with the intention of creating another suite. So, and I analyzed, what that particular place was across the street from the beach. So I actually only estimated that I'd have this is New England, right, where I live. I thought maybe 5 month season, right? But it was rented. The funny thing was the winters ended up being rented full time by people who were like there for, work experience or something. So I was like, great. I had several people who stayed for those cold 6 months when I thought it would be empty. So the numbers ended up being much better than I anticipated. But I think it's always better to be a little bit pessimistic when you're running numbers anyway. But yeah, I for sure did, because I had to calculate the renovation costs, and that because there was a bigger cost. I had to add a whole kitchen, take a half bath and turn it into a full bath. So, and then there was the whole permitting process, which was an experience in itself.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Like, do you check with I'm assuming you checked with the local authorities and LNI department prior of?
Yes, I did. I checked the zoning to make sure that I would be able to make it into a legal 2-family. But I want to say a friend of mine lives in an area where he has to have a single family home. And the way he got around that was that he has doors between the properties and he's just not allowed to lock them. So he's got 3 roommates that are full-time roommates, and he just leaves the doors open. So it's still legal because they're technically just roommates. They don't have a private, they have their own entrances and exits, but because they could access the main house, that makes it legal apparently. So.
And Christine, what do you do about vetting, right? Vetting those people, especially women. We want to make sure that we're safe and we're mindful of not just men, but men, women, and people in general that don't have good intentions. Share with us what you have done in order to get a sense of security when you're house hacking.
Airbnb is good in that and I'm just saying Airbnb, but obviously I never use VRBO as a what am I call it? A host. So I don't know anything about it, but Airbnb allows you to decide how you want to allow people to book. So if they already have positive reviews from other people, you can let them book automatically, or you can say, I want to review every single person who tries to book. Or like I said, you can only review people you can only have to approve people who don't have any reviews, or, potentially don't have positive reviews. So then you can look them up a little bit. There's not a ton of information just because of the discrimination laws. You can't know their age, you can't know their, where they're from, really, things like that. But you can, I feel like you can get a feel for them sometimes even from their questions. But because you live in the home, and if you make that very clear to the people, in general, you're going to get people who are quieter, nicer. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get, and the other thing is, once they do book and you have a chance to read more information about them, if you get like little tingles and you just think, you are allowed, because it is your home, you're allowed to cancel them for safety reasons. So it's pretty, the extent that it could be when you're dealing with complete strangers, I feel like Airbnb does try to make it a little bit easier.
How have you managed have you had someone who hasn't, been who they say they are, or there's some reason to cancel their reservation? Have you had to do it that yet?
Horror stories. Here we go.
I have horror stories from my Airbnb that I didn't live in.
Okay.
And
not so much the house hacking one.
Yeah. As opposed to the house hacking one, where this kid said, he's like, I'm a single guy. I just want to rent, and you work on my dissertation and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, great. But then I get a call from the state police that weekend, and there's this huge party, 29 kids. And one of the kids, when the police came, jumped out the second story window and broke the window. And I was just like, and when I went there, one of the kids had laid on the bed and like barfed all over the rug. And it was just like, holy crap.
That was the dissertation that he was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
How?
What's the alcohol impact here?
The alcohol impact with 30
alcohol
people
consumption impact
in an Airbnb. What are the results?
Yeah, and he got a great paper, I hope. But it was bad for him because he had to pay for everything, But yeah,
wow.
That was quite a bad experience. And I'm sure the neighbors were not too excited with me at that point, but that would obviously never have happened if he saw on the listing that I lived next door,
That's amazing.
I'm curious too, when it comes to like, house hacking and living in the property with your tenants or guests, whatever you want to call them, in a time that you're winding down, right? So there's a financial benefit there, and there's other benefits like we've talked about here. Navigating, how have you navigated your kind of like, okay, this is the property and this is my, like, I know we talked a little bit about the financing part, but even holistically, do you look at your holistic kind of like all your properties and say, okay, what's the next one going to look like? And how do I maximize revenue and have the lifestyle I want? Because, you're in your 40s, 50s, which we're talking about here. You're not in your 20s. Just there are things that shift and change. So how have you navigated as you've added properties to your portfolio? Because that's the other part of this, or taken properties away. I don't know, whatever way, but managing your portfolio, not just the property.
And I feel like that as we get older, like I'm 58, just to kind of, or am I 59? Crap. Well, anyway, I'm not young, although I feel like I am. So I'm thinking about, where do I like to go? What do I like to do? Like when I have to go and check on this property, where do I want to visit? Right. So that's really a big part for me. So when I bought things that were away from me, I bought a couple hours up in the White Mountains, and I bought, now I'm thinking about actually land in Arizona and putting some cabins up there, just like I'm thinking, where do I like to visit? And so very selfishly, it's, and a lot of times those vacation sort of property, so those vacation-y kind of areas have kind of reasonably priced properties. So I was able to do really well in the White Mountains and buy something for what you'd pay for a parking space in Boston. Right. So yeah, you can really, I think you should be looking at your life and your pleasure and what's going to, bring you joy, because at this point, maybe it isn't all about the money.
And that's huge. And it's a really important piece. And it's an ongoing piece, what that lifestyle question, not just financial returns, especially at that stage of life, right? I mean, it's important, to look at the financial piece, especially as your family dynamic has shifted, children are out, your role in life, right? I couldn't know, my sister's going through that. Really, my nephew's a senior in high school. And I feel like every time I talk to her, she's really like in this stage of life, right? And it's her only child. So she's like mourning this loss that's going to happen next year, but it's real, right? It's real. And there's a lot at play. So that's a great point about what brings you joy, especially in being an empty nester, when joy has now shifted, right? Our role in life have shifted as women, as people. So it's a great point. This has been great, Christine. Appreciate you being on and everything. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you?
Probably a good, easy place is womencreatingwealth.net. There's some fun things there. And I guess, let's just leave it at that. I don't want to list my 57 different, as we all have. And then Instagram and there's Facebook. Yeah, forget that.
So people gave their phone number. I was like, no. But anyway, all this information you guys can find on our show notes. And now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And the first one, Christine, is what's the most transformational book you ever read?
Wow. That's so, there's a million answers because every time I read one, I'm like, oh my God, but I think 2 that come to mind, and I almost feel like they're tied together, is Think and Grow Rich, which, I've read 57 times. And then there's a book that came out of that called The Go-Giver. And I love that book. And if it was a different day, I might give you a different answer.
That's the beauty of it, right? And what's the most powerful routine that you do to live a financially free and balanced life, whatever that means to you?
It's 100% is getting up early. I mean, I used to be proud of the fact that I didn't have to get up till that. I get woken up with the alarm at 7:30, and now it's like 5:15 or whenever the sun rises, and at that time in the morning, to journal, to listen to things, to talk to myself with affirmations, do my exercises. It's so powerful. And I just feel like that sets a foundation for the day that you can just, really leap from.
Awesome. Last question. Which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
Interesting. You know who I love? And I don't know, Audrey Hepburn. I just love her because she just seems to be like both strong and classy, at the same time. And I think she's amazing.
Christine, thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you for sharing your tips with us and the women in our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It's wonderful to meet you both.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.